But yeah, man, what do you think about what was said during the week, bro?
Far as what?
Just this whole York guy thing, man.
Well, like I mean, like we witnessed, man. You know what I'm saying? When it's people who still follow, if they're gonna keep spewing, the misinformation, you need to have an objective view. You know what I'm saying? Even when you post facts and show them, But I mean, this ain't really for them. You know what I'm saying? This is for the audience who heard it and was there, so they can have an objective side of view.
Yeah. And you see the brother Doom in the chat. He said, "Yo, I seen a lot of York supporters this past week or two. Yeah, son, they came out
Yeah,
the woodwork,
yeah.
bro. They came out of nowhere, son. Damn, I don't know. I don't know, bro. I don't know, Saya. I don't know. So one of the things they keep saying is that, until Chuck figures out how to work this thing, that this guy was never convicted of child molestation. They keep saying that it's not true, and they would skip that. They kind of like revert to the second case, which is the feds, and they say, "Well, you see, it's an intent to do. That doesn't mean that he did nothing." And then they're missing the point of what he cops out to. And then there's the question of what was it? Was it for child molestation? What were the counts? You know? And then it goes into that back and forth argument of why he did this. But then they forget to leave out the other people who pled guilty. He has co-defendants. Those women that he claimed that he was copping out to free, one with multiple sclerosis, Miss Kathy Johnson, or, you know, yeah,
There you go.
she got out. Peace, brother Chuck.
Peace, Chuck.
Yeah, you gotta unmute your mic. There you go.
Yeah, can you hear me?
You figured it out.
Yeah, we hear you, bro.
No. I was in the kitchen. I didn't even hear nothing was going on. Sorry.
Yeah, he's up to date now. Chuck is up to date. He's into the
Oh, what? No more YouTube.
Nah, we doing YouTube. It's just that I started coming over here a lot because it was different conversations
Right,
versus the
right,
same old YouTube thing. And then I was like, wow. And then it's gonna merge because it's black people and we're gonna talk about black stuff.
right.
But did you get a chance to listen to some of that recent that was going on?
Um, when I tried to get in, somebody had me blocked. I wasn't able to get in, so I got kind of frustrated. I was talking to a sister on the back end, and I just had to pull out because it was just too stupid for me to process. And because 90% of that argument was already dealt with back in 2004, 5, 6, 7, debunked in real time. When the documents came out, when the sealed transcripts were unsealed, all of that rhetoric that was taught previously was void. I was surprised that no one even brought out the fact that the sealed documents were no longer sealed. I mean, I have the sealed. I keep saying them sealed. I have the trial transcripts, and I use them when I'm putting out information on the website. So all of this back and forth chatter about he did this, he should have did that, he copped the. None of that is relevant at this point. One, he's convicted. Nothing that we're going to say is going to change that. He is not going to walk free. York is not coming out. It's been a pipe dream that's been sold to Nuwaupians every year since 2004. He's coming home. Let's fight for the master teacher's freedom. None of that has happened. 20 years later, and you're still saying the same thing? I have pretty much moved on from talking about this guy. 2022 is irrelevant. But
Right.
every now and then they keep bringing him up, so, every now and then I got to pop back in.
Yeah, and now they was telling me about it. They was like, go in the room, go in the room. And when I went in the room, this conversation spewed, and then it got big. And then I was like, hold on, these are some people that they'll be in the audience when we building about history and stuff like that. They don't say nothing, but now I found out all of these people is with the York. It just took like five of them to start talking, and they all just so. What I'm saying is that this is a whole different demographic of young people. Some middle age, but they are hearing this for the first time, and
Yeah,
now they like, oh, this is true. So,
yeah.
but I want you to do, if you don't mind, you could introduce yourself to the people, let them know how long you were a part of the organization, if and we can go from there. And I got some questions for you.
All right. Okay, real fast. My involvement with the organization began around 1989 in Washington, D.C. That's how I became a part of the cult. And, well, that was when he was running the Ansar cult. He had metamorphosized that cult into different groups over time. But that was his main claim to fame back in the 80s, 90s, and so forth. I followed the organization as an active member all the way up until his incarceration, even up until about 2011. That was when I had made my departure from the organization after I left the mainland. So I've been with the organization from 89 all the way up to, I'd say, 2011. Um, my relationship with him was, I guess you could say, somewhat close, being as though I was one of his student teachers. When publications came out, we did the proofreading. On behalf of the organization, I had a radio program, talk radio, in Washington. We had our own show. We would debate people in theology, different schools of thought, Hebrew Israelite, Israeli church, whatever. So I was pretty active, and as a result of that activity, it brought a level of notoriety within the organization. And my first meeting in New York was back in upstate. No, it was actually in Brooklyn, but we didn't really engage until around 1990 up in Monticello, New York. And I was during that period when he had changed the name from Imam Issa to Rabboni Yeshua Bar El Hadi. Yeah.
Right.
So
So, yeah, go ahead.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah. So my question is, why do these kids say that you don't know Dr. York or you were never a part of the organization? That you love him, like you follow him or something like that. Well, why would they say that?
Well, I don't know who's been saying that, but any of the old heads who's ever been a part of the organization, they know me. Maybe not by the name Chuck, but they do know Idris or Kedar. I don't know. Most of the people who are the staunch defenders or pushers of the Yorkism are people that usually have never met him. That's what I've found it in arguments online. Is people that have never met him are some of his most staunch supporters. And I thought that was pretty funny, but when you start going toe to toe, doctrine by doctrine and this and that, and you start taking apart, you still don't know what they're talking about. I focus more on the doctrine because that was what I was. I guess that was my real thing. Studying. That's what Idris was all about. One who studies, blah blah. That was my thing. I didn't get into this whole case stuff until we were starting to go battling online and different things where they started attacking different victims and stuff. So that was my thing. So
Right,
yeah.
right,
So I
right.
don't know where they're coming from with that.
Yeah, because the people that was on was Uma, so Uma York, right? The other
I've
sister.
seen her. I've seen her pictures. I've seen her um, in different in different YouTube circles. I mean, I don't know her,
Right.
but I am familiar with some of the things that she said online. But he has so many kids, and you don't know. I don't know who's who for
Right,
real.
right. So I want to get to. We can start with the case and then go to the teachings, right? all of that. We'll do it backwards.
Let me start. Let me say this, because if I have to leave after, because I was supposed to do a show early on another platform, but we got back.
I want to see that.
And and I got to go shopping, but everybody's here right now, so let's just keep it going and pick it up later on if necessary.
All right. So we start with the juicy. We get with the case. So what was he convicted of?
Well, he was convicted on 11 of 13 charges. Yeah, I may have to pull up. The different documents. Hold on. Well, I can still talk and go over it. So it wasn't everything, of course. And remember, this was in the federal. So the main number of charges was centered around transporting minors across state lines for the purpose of illegal sex.
Right.
And they were convicting him based on the Mann Act, which dealt with prostitution, traveling from one state and committing various sex acts in a destination state. And so that was what I'm trying to pull up, if I can find it, because I haven't had to deal with this stuff for so long. But what I want to pull up is his actual conviction, what he got convicted of, the charges, etc.
Yeah, I have your website up on the top.
Oh, you know what? I can go over there. That's where I put everything.
Right.
But I was looking on my actual computer here. Right. But let's if you can. Well, I can type it up right now. I can just put it in. I have an article on Nuwaupians called if he wasn't convicted of child molestation, what was he convicted of?
Yeah, the one I see now is number 6. Dr. York was not convicted of sex.
That's the one. Yeah.
Right, so
I don't know how this Clubhouse thing works. Do you share screens, or how does that work?
It won't let you share the screen, but like the link that's at the top, you see how I have your website there? If you wanna, I'm gonna make you a moderator here. Mm-hmm. So if you wanna like show something, you just go there, see where it says pin link, and you take it off, and then you put it. So I'm gonna put that exact article there, so if people in the audience want to follow along.
Okay.
Boom. So now I got that article up, so as you're talking, everybody can see it. So you see it now, it just changed. It says, if Dr. York was not convicted of child sex related crimes, then what?
Remember, I'm using my computer here.
Yeah, you use your computer, whatever way you want to do
it. Where would I find that? Over here. I mean, with this Clubhouse.
It's on the computer. How does this look on the computer?
Yeah. You know what? If you can read a portion of it, I'm gonna pull it up on my side, and then I can walk it from there.
So on the first part, on that, it says the United States District Court, United States of America, date May 7, 2004, amendment judgment and criminal case numbers there, Jonathan Marks. Then it says, was found guilty on counts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, and 13. Then it says the defendant is adjudicated guilty of these offenses. Title Section 18192D, conspiracy to commit racketeering violations. Count 1 and 2. And then the other counts is on the bottom. So that's that. Then it says the additional counts of conviction. 1837. Conspiracy to transport minors to interstate commerce for unlawful sexual activity. Conspiracy to travel in interstate commerce for unlawful sexual activity with minors. And conspiracy to structure cash transactions to evade currency transactions reporting requirements.
Okay. All right. There we go. I see. I got it pulled up now. All right. So, where we at? We can go right up here. Okay, let's just go over. Let's go over to the main part. Okay, the defendant is hereby committed to the custody of the United States Bureau of Prisons to be imprisoned for a total term of 240 months. That's a case one. Let's say 200. So here we have, in this case, we have 240 months for conspiracy to commit racketeering violations, racketeering acts, 240 months. Conspiracy to transport minors in interstate commerce for unlawful sexual activity, conspiracy to travel into interstate commerce for unlawful sexual activity with minors, and conspiracy to structure cash transactions to evade currency transaction reporting, 60 months. Transporting minors in interstate commerce for unlawful sexual acts, 540 months. That is on that is on 4, 5, and 6 counts. The travel in interstate commerce to engage in unlawful sexual activity with minors, 180 months. Cash structuring to evade currency transaction, reporting requirements, 360. That's on 9, 10, and 11. Unlawful transport of minors, forfeiture, and all totaling 1,620 months, a total of 135 years. So that's what he was dealing with. That's how this thing came about when it became to the federal. Now, keep in mind that on the 23rd and 24th of 2003, York had pled guilty in both the state and in the federal venues. The federal judge had rejected his guilty plea over time based on the sentencing guidelines, and because a minimum of 20 years is what the judge wanted, but they wanted to go with the 15, and that was just too lenient for such severe crimes that was committed. And that's when it subsequently went to trial. Keep in mind, and this is something that I do remember hearing on that on this Clubhouse thing, it was how they were attacking the brother Tariq on, say, some inconsistencies, or one minute he said this, 1 minute he said that. Keep in mind, if you're going to use that form of reasoning and that logic, you have to be consistent. But they're not being consistent, because if they were being consistent, York would be held to that same standard. Case in point, when York was brought in to when he was supposed to be arraigned, when he pled he pled not guilty. When that was how it was initially. He pled not guilty. Then in 2003, he pled guilty. And then after it was rejected, it was going to trial. Then he was going on the different that series of audio recordings from the jail where they were scripted, where he was claiming to be innocent. So there you have it, the same thing. First he said he's innocent, then he says he's guilty, then he says he's innocent. So which is it? You got to be consistent if you're going to hold people to that standard. Now, there was something else that was brought into that whole talking point, which was why did he plead guilty? And that was something that we went through in an article as well, because I felt that over time the same questions had been asked, or the same talking points has been going out all over the internet. So pretty much you start to just build a storyline behind it. So I just put up an article based on a lot of the arguments that were on Facebook and in different other circles. So one was, why did Dr. York plead guilty? And they said that, well, he did it in order to free the other women.
Right.
Yeah, but this is why I was asking the question. This stuff is old. It was debunked long ago.
Right.
I just don't understand.
I'm gonna put that link up there right now.
Let me give you let's go through the timeline on this thing real
Okay, you
fast.
got the you already got it laid out. And this is for the people who's watching. So this ain't not just talking. This is a person who has been a part of this since 1989, and
All right.
now the link is up there.
So the timeline, real simple. The timeline was Malachi York was arrested on May 8th, 2002, denied federal and state bond, pled guilty to 40 counts of child molestation on January 24, 2003. Kathy Johnson was arrested May 8th, 2002, and granted federal bond, denied state bond, released on bond December 4th, 2002. Pled guilty April 1st, 2003. Khadijah Merritt turned herself in on May 21st, 2002. Denied bond, released on bond December 6th, 2002. Pled guilty May 30th, 2003. Chandra Lampkin turned herself in May 21st, denied bond, released on bond December 6, 2002, pled guilty May 30th, 2003. Esther Cole turned herself in on May 16th and granted bond. What is the issue here? Well, it's real simple. It's right in the timeline. Why, when York went to plead guilty in the federal and the state, all of these women were already out. We were already at home. As a matter of fact, I interviewed Kathy Johnson, and she said we was watching it on TV.
For the people that's listening, who are those 4 women?
The women are, here we have Esther Cole, Chandra Lampkin, Khadijah Merritt, and Kathy Johnson. Kathy Johnson is considered York's main girl at the time. She was considered his main girl. She put out a publication called the what's the name of that book? It was called The Main Wife. She is the mother of then Issa Johnson, who was one of the listed victims in the case. So you could have gone to the Augusta Chronicle. You could have went to the Associated Press. It was all in the news. The Nuwaupian leader's wife freed on bail. When she was free on bail, she couldn't have been tortured as well. Here's 2 things, because on one hand, they said that he pled guilty because he was he wanted to free the women that were being tortured. Then on the flip side, they said that he pled guilty because he was being tortured. So which is it? Or is it all of it? Wow. But this is something that, other than the fact that York was saying that he was having to sleep on the floor around rats, roaches, and this kind of thing, we thought that was kind of interesting, because in a video that we put out, where York had said that if you're sleeping around rats and roaches, don't get bit. He said, I had y'all living like that so that you'll be able to withstand anything the devil brings up on you. So wait a minute. He said this in upstate New York in 1991.
Wow.
And that lifestyle of living in substandard third world type of environment, that was how we were supposed to live, because it was supposed to make us strong. Yet the man that implemented that lifestyle, he couldn't handle it when he was just in jail. He wasn't even in prison yet. He was in Jones County. He was in the different jails, but he couldn't handle a rat or a roach. Was he afraid of getting bit? Because he said, if you see a rat, just don't get bit. That's what he said.
Hey, brother, quick question.
So you're gonna have to use that against your.
Quick question,
Go ahead.
brother. Is he in the Fed or state? Like, what's his situation?
Currently, he resides in the Colorado Supermax. Initially, he was convicted and sentenced to Leavenworth, Kansas. But because of some infractions he had acquired by threatening prison officials, he was placed into the solitary maximum. So he wasn't initially sent to Colorado Supermax to be in a cell next to Gas Pipe Castle. No, he was sent there as a result of some of his actions at the in Kansas at the federal facility there in Leavenworth.
Wow.
Right. I mean, I could imagine somebody that comes, from that level of leadership, being placed in a situation like that. I'm sure he felt very privileged to have certain things. He was just used to a life of a bunch of people following him. He wasn't used to being in a humble space like that.
Keep in mind that being he was a multimillionaire. His hustle was being, of course, the books. When we had to turn over our money, at least in DC and DC, Baltimore, we had a quota of $100 a day. In Florida, we had I think it was $50. So you had to turn in your quota, which was, of course, $100, and you have to have. Here's the thing, because one of the things that was brought out in a publication by an Orthodox Sunni Muslim named Bilal Phillips called the Ansar Cult in America. Now, in that book, he makes reference to something known as the Green Room. That was this infamous place that they said that this is where the cult followers, once they are able to afford it, they'll be able to have relations with their wife or mates, as we called the girls at the time. They were called mates. And the man who turned in the most money for that night had access to the Green Room in Washington, D.C. at the time. It was on Florida Avenue next to the old Howard Theater, and it was nothing more than just one room with a pissy mattress, some adult magazines, and some incense. Back then, it was the Mahdi incense, and that's where you took your girl. If you turned in, I know. If you turned in over $100, and at that time you had about 30 brothers in DC, and everybody's vying for who's going to put it, because nobody wanted to stay in guard, because the lowest man had to stay in guard all night, or all day actually. Because if you come in, and if you turn in like $80, then you look at because the brother Wakil will put a post up on, okay, here's the low man, you got post 1, you got post 2, at 9 o'clock up until 9 p.m. that night. If you doze off, if you fall asleep, then you get taxed. And that's when you get an extra 3 hours and you have to stay there till midnight. That's how it was. So the brother Wadafa, who used to sell go-go tapes downtown, he of course was the number one guy always going to the Green Room, because he turned in like $150 a day. Because he had the tapes, he had the machine to dub the cassette tapes. You could sell Chuck Brown, Rare Essence, Junkyard. He would pump all that out, and some of the brothers started jumping on board with it, because nobody wanted to be the low man. So it moved away from so much as going out every day propagating to try to reach souls and pushing Islam at the time. It was more about who's going to turn in the most amount of money. And that's what that whole system had become. And I found that to be in different cities that I had been in, from Florida to Baltimore, and of course DC. But Baltimore was a little more laid back. We had a lot more guys and girls, but we had more leeway, and you can take walks and things like that, as opposed to just staying to this one little condemned building that we had. So getting back to the whole point, I don't know why we got kind of a little sidetracked off of that. So he lived a lavish lifestyle, and that was something that was brought out at the trial as well, because as he lived lavishly as a multimillionaire, the followers, the most devoted, lived in squalor. And even the fact that the sisters, and this was brought out at the trial as well. That's why I wish they could get the trial transcripts posted, because then people can read where you can see how the sisters, they was, listen, he was so cheap because anything that happened had to go through the office. You had to talk to either Habyibah, you had to talk to Ms. Herbert, you had to talk to any of these people. And if they needed money, they had to ask for some money just for something as simple and mundane as sanitary napkins. Sisters had to take pantyhoses and wrap it up with paper in order to get something to stop the bleeding. This is what some of the sisters had conferred to me, and this is what was brought out. Yeah, it's listen, it's pretty bad. On the surface, Tamaray, Egypt of the West, looked beautiful. It was magnificent. It was a magnificent creation. It looked beautiful, but it was just an empty package, because once you got past those doors, when you go where the brothers slept in the barn. Grown as men lived in a barn, dormitory style, hot, muggy. Didn't get a chance to go out because the brothers was working sun up to sun down, building the various edifices on the land. Now keep in mind, when I say build, I'm talking about decoration, because those pyramids, like the Black Pyramid, the White Pyramid, initially that's what it was, a white pyramid, until the brothers started doing some painting and started giving it that whole Egyptian look, that ancient look, start having to give it that ruined look. Yeah, they didn't get a chance to go out and propagate or go out there to make money like a man to take care of his family. No. At any given time, when the brothers would be able to walk around, they would go bumming money from people who they may know on the property. When you go down to Savior's Day, I can see Sadiq coming up. You can see all the brothers go, let me hit me off with something. We can't go nowhere. Wow. And I spent the night up in there one time.
Before you get deep into this part, because that's going to lead to the teachings, and we want to talk about these living conditions from Brooklyn going there, because you're basically showing a pattern. The last part of the case I wanted to talk about is one of the parts I believe I read. It was speaking about this herpes simplex 2 complex, right? And you have people that showed his medical record to say, no, he doesn't have it. Can you talk about this?
Yeah. Wow. Where we start with that one? Because there was something released by the Nuwaupians called Medical Records Do Not Lie. And what it talked about, if I can remember...
I'll pull it up for you, brother. I'm going to put the link up. I'm with you. You can talk
okay.
While you talking, I'll get it up there.
At that time, it was the cult was going by the name Nuwaupian Nation of Moors, Yamasee, Native American, Creek, something like that. So they released this little leaflet called "Medical Records Don't Lie." The intent was to convince the people in town that York didn't have any kind of STDs. Okay. And they would take an excerpt from one of something that one of the victims may have said, and try to come up with an idea to say that, okay, he didn't have this STD or that AC. Okay, so let me see. Let me pull this thing up. Okay, so
I got it.
Oh, you got it? Oh, okay, great. All right, so
it says medical records don't lie.
Okay, medical records don't lie. Okay, yeah. It talks about York is not having. He went through a medical evaluation, and that he had a clean bill of health and not having any STDs. But one of the things that we realize is that he didn't have a specific test at the time, which was for the herpes simplex. Now, we know that there's some controversy on his hereditary angioedema, because he sent letters out saying that he was cured of the hereditary angioedema by about 3 of his extraterrestrial talking buddies that he knew growing up since a kid until his adult years. He was still, and he even said they came into the jail and they told him that he's going to be all right. They cured him of his angioedema, and they watched him float outside of his cell. And then God said, they said it's on video. Where, this is York saying this in the letter now. 3 different letters stating that this was on video, and they parked their ship right outside the jail. But that's another story. But getting back to that point, what Nuwaupians don't address was the fact that in the pamphlet is that after Dr. York was arrested and taken into federal custody, medical doctors for the government tested him on August 15th. They took vows upon vows of his blood to be tested to see if it could prove that the alleged victims got these diseases from him, to further substantiate their false accusations. This is what they're saying, false accusations. When the test came back, the federal government was astonished. The results came back that Dr. Malachi Z. York tested negative for chlamydia, the disease that most of the alleged victims were actively diagnosed with. Now, first of all, I'm just reading along with my article here. First of all, how do they know if the federal government was astonished? That's the whole appealing to excitement. If you read the court motion and the order, it was ordered to have York tested for herpes 1 and 2, and does not mention chlamydia. Now, why was the government's focus on herpes, as the pamphlet states? Because if you go back down to it, that in August 15th, 2002, that's when this thing takes off. So on 7/29/2002, Stanford University Medical Center, they had a court order to diagnose the blood for herpes virus simplex 1 and 2. Okay? So a motion was filed by the government for a specific medical exam for the herpes. The motion was a result of the government wanting to test York to see if he had herpes, as did at least 2, this specific herpes simplex 2, by at least 2 of the listed victims. So if we go down to it and we get right to the specifics, this even was brought up. This wasn't at the trial. This was going through the pre-trial. In preparation for the trial in late 2003, the issue of the positive herpes simplex 2 resurfaced. York declined to have another independent test done, one initiated by his defense lawyers. Now, this is something that the brother Wajaru had done on Garfield's blog talk when he was going over this stuff, and the brother brought up a very good point. He said, wait a minute, so they came back showing the results of the analysis, and it shows that he had herpes simplex 2, as did 2 of the juvenile victims who was in his care, yet he didn't want to have a second independent test done. That was it. And so that right there pretty much, sealed it in the minds of some people. Now, this came to surface only as a result of other people who was trying to get York transferred to get him into a medical facility. And so a lot of this medical stuff had to come up, and this is how it was unsealed. And then, of course, it got put out there, and now we got a hold of it. So what I did was I tried to show on the website, I wanted to give the people a chance to see it for themselves. This is what was brought out, and this is what they knew. This was the other attorney through discovery had to take a look at, and this is what ultimately led to York pleading guilty in both the state and the federal. That's what it was about. It was because having to try to defend yourself against something like this, well, I'm going to try to do it real fast. I'm going to try to go through, and I'm hoping maybe not to do it all, but Richard Moultrie, who was the prosecutor at the time, and then Adrian Patrick. So in reading on the January 5th, 2004 USA versus York case, We have some of the children acquired herpes simplex 2, which is the virus most commonly contracted from sexual activity. One of the children contracted gonorrhea, and I believe that it is the extent of the sexually transmitted disease. The evidence that we expect the jury to hear, the relevance of the testimony, Your Honor, will be that according to the evidence that the government will be able to generate through an expert, that Mr. York is also positive for herpes simplex 2, which is, again, the virus most commonly transmitted through sexual transmission. So the relevance, Your Honor, would be that one of the viruses for which Mr. York is positive also is a virus that some of our victims are positive for, and at least two of the other diseases, that is the chlamydia, both anal and vaginal, are diseases that are easily treatable, such that Mr. York will argue could have easily been treated for those diseases. Adrian, if I may, I'll just wait until Mr. Moultrie finishes. It would be, this is a Moultrie, it would be, Your Honor, a jury issue, and that is a question for the jury to determine the weight of that kind of evidence, the weight of its relevance. Obviously, the court may elect to exclude it, but we certainly don't want to be in a position, Your Honor, of the government to put in the physical findings of the victim and not offer all of the physical findings that this particular child also positive with sexually transmitted diseases that the government will introduce. So the judge says, well, let me ask you a question. Let's say I keep this evidence out. Would you agree not to make that argument? Adrian Patrick, Your Honor, yeah. If you keep the STDs out, period, yes. Your Honor, if the sexually transmitted disease are out, we don't have to bring that evidence in unless there was going to be a partition, like he was still going to try to bring some other physical evidence in. Mr. Moultrie, absolutely. Well, what you're telling me is something that the defendant may do is making this evidence relevant, is the way it sounds to me. Mr. Moultrie. Well, more specifically, Your Honor, the government is unsure as to how it would have been appropriate for it to make an effort to offer physical findings of a certain nature and include physical findings of a different nature. If the court is going to order that we limit the evidence of physical findings to physical injury and the physical condition of the children's genital area when they were examined in the defense agrees to abide by, and so on, they don't have objection to that, then of course we'll abide by the ruling. So the whole point was to try to see whether or not we're going to bring this into the trial. And if you go to the site, you can read what they came up and what their decision was on that. And, it didn't actually come up in the trial because they had already agreed upon it because they had so much other stuff that they could that they used on York. So as you go further down, you'll get to see the results of his. Now, this is what that little track that I initially read up. Medical evidence don't lie. Yeah, okay, medical evidence don't lie. And they did because they didn't talk about this. Because they didn't want this to go out in the public. And so that's why you cannot refute this because the evidence is here. And even with this alone, you still should say, well, damn, why didn't Pop get a second opinion? Because it's going to come back the same way. And that would have been even more difficult to try to defend. So by that time, he decided to go ahead and just plead guilty because people that were involved in the case, that was his whole thing. He said that that was the only recourse of action that he had, and so that's what happened. So these are the facts that Nuwaupians need as a tool to help them wake up. York's career and success was highly dependent on the mystery surrounding him. The less people knew the less people knew of actual information about him, the more room he could maneuver. You have to know that he did not testify in his own behalf. And this would be a big issue in the minds of all Nuwaupians, that he wouldn't go up there and debate the black prosecutor, Richard Moultrie, when York said that he knew exactly how to deal with everybody in court. Remember now, this guy says he has 76 trillion years of knowledge. 76 trillion years. And that he's debated scholars the world over. No evidence. But he could not stand up in a courthouse and defend himself against a 4-foot tall black prosecutor in Georgia. But he's got 76 trillion years of knowledge. So when you see the video on YouTube, that's I think that's the second in the state where he's pleading guilty to the child molestation charges. So that's what led, of course, that's
Wow.
what led up to that whole thing. It was based upon the discovery of the blood work that came back from Stanford in California.
Yeah, so that was something that was real big, and a lot of people were like, they wasn't sure because once people was telling that one side. So yeah, this is a needed conversation.
And
Last thing. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
real fast, I think that this particular issue alone kind of puts everything in perspective, because you got to understand the culture of the cult at the time. Please understand, the children weren't raised like typical children. First of all, they were segregated. This goes all the way back to Ansars in Brooklyn and the various satellite communities around the East Coast. You had the children who, well, they had them in different dormitory style living. You had the little girls. Well, the infants, for the most part, lived with their parents. Well, I'm sorry, lived with the mother, spent most of the time with the mother. But then you had like a little nursery. Then you had the little girl's house, the young boy's house. You had another age. They were in different age groups. Okay, so like the Banats, they haven't reached their puberty yet. They were put in a different house. Now, this is in Brooklyn. This is in upstate New York. This is down in Eatonton, Georgia. So York has access to all of them. Keep in mind, this segregated living, the men do not live with their wives or girlfriends. They live with the brothers, and the brothers baked. Okay.
Let me ask you something. What was the setup as far as like the relationship between the men and their children? Like, what was that about? Because I noticed, and not to talk down on the brother Phase One that's on the app. We've been in conversations in the past, and we brought up Dr. York, and York or whatever. And
you really want to go in that
one. He's a very intelligent brother, right? But I noticed that it's still a piece of him that's in that, right? Because he came up under that. And he refers to Mr. York as Pop. Like no matter how deep we are in conversation, he calls him Pop. And I wonder, like, what is that about? Is that did they divide the children from their fathers, and Dr. York played that position or that role in all these kids' lives, or what? Like, what was that?
Okay, usually that was more a term of endearment. That was an affectionate term that the brothers, for the most part, referred to York as, call him Pops. Like Fred Sanford, Pops. That was more where that term Pops was centered on. It was just like, just call him Pops, because he was like everybody's Pops, because he's an older man, and he was like dad. He's like a grandfather for the most part. All right. So that's basically where that whole thing comes out of. Now, when it came to fathers and their children, a lot of the brothers didn't spend time with their kids because they were out making money. And that was by design. Okay? If you let me see if I can find in one of the testimonies Habyibah Washington was giving when she was questioned about her relationship with her father. She said, let me see if I can remember. Well, let me see if I can pull it up. According to the to one of the victims of Habyibah Washington, the child molester and child rapist Malachi York started a sexual relationship with her at age 13. When York was in his 40s, this alone makes York a pedophile, etc. Habyibah's father, Nathaniel Washington, who was a joke as a father and looked the other way. That's not going into what I'm looking for. So she when she was asked, here, I think I have it right here. Damn, I'm sorry, because I want to get right down to that whole point, but this kind of is going into another, what type of sex? Okay, this is kind of going in a different direction, but the point, what was brought out was that she was asked, what is her relationship with her father and her mother? And she said she didn't see her parents except on the family day, which was on Saturday. And they on that family day, you spend a little time with your child, and usually the brothers are out on Saturdays. There may be some at home on Sundays because you got this question and answer classes on Sundays, unless you have to go out and propagate or go out there and hustle. So in her case, and many of other cases, they just didn't have time with their children. There was no real nurturing of a father-daughter relationship in that community. Maybe if they were outside of the community because they had that time together, but once you came inside, all of that changed. So in her case, no, she didn't have that kind of relationship, and York had been something of a father figure. And that was a common theme among the victims who were testifying, is that for those who had first had their sexual encounter with York, some were kind of, shocked by the fact because they saw him more as a father and not a lover. Let me give you a case in point. This is coming from the. Do me a favor, brother. Can you do me a favor? Raborn, do this. Go to, if we can go to the website, because I can't do it on my computer. Go to the article. Did you know that Dr. York impregnated a 17-year-old girl in 1992?
All right, got you.
If you pull that up, because I heard the brother in Nuwaupian assassin, my brother Keto, I don't remember what the hell his name is now. He was saying there are no redacted, nobody has the sealed transcripts, and there are none that are redacted, or he said they're all of them, the ones that they have are redacted, something like that. So what I did in this article, I wanted to go a step further. I didn't want to post trial notes. What I did was I'd say, I'm going to put the sealed transcripts up there and just go for broke. So this is on sealed transcript, page 1557. And I'm going to read it. And the question and answer, the question is this is the prosecutor.
It's up right now.
Okay, if you can go down past, you'll see where it says, you see where Kathy Johnson, you see that? Okay, so the defendant's co-wife, Kathy, let me say this about Kathy. Kathy, she was on probation. She spent time for her crimes. She admitted to her crimes, and not because she was under any coercion or that kind of stuff. And on the website, I interviewed her, and she explained some of the things. And she, of course, she admits that these things happened. The sex acts happened. She was right there, but they don't want to deal with that. Kathy talks about it, and she even apologized as best she could in her book, The Main Wife, a memoir of manipulation and victory. So let's see here. So let's go into.
What's the name of that book again? What's the name of that?
It's called The Main Wife, a memoir of manipulation and victory.
Okay.
It's on Amazon.
Wow.
You'll see her on the cover. Okay. Let's just go through this thing. All right. So, question. And would you tell the jury what you remember about the first incident that happened? Answer. This is Habyibah. Answer. I was in his house with Radia, and he was coming up the steps from the studio. And Radia told me to go behind the curtain, and he came in the room, and she sat him down on the chair, and she started giving him oral sex. And he saw me through the curtain, so he pulled me out. And so Radia was showing me, what she was doing to him, and she wanted me to do it. And so, he was like, well, I'm reading as it's typed up. I shouldn't just be a guinea pig. Like, I feel like I'm just the guinea pig. So Radia started to unbutton my dress, and she took it off, and then he just started fondling me. How old were you? I was 13. And when Mr. York referred to a guinea pig, I don't want to feel like a guinea pig. Who is he referring to? Answer. He was the only one sitting there, showing himself. So I guess he didn't, I don't know. Question. Was there anyone in the room except Mr. York, Radia, and you? No. What type of sex acts did Mr. York do to you while you still lived in Brooklyn? It was just oral sex and anal. Question. Do you recall the first time he did anal sex to you in Brooklyn? Yes. How old were you? I was 14. And would you tell the jury what happened? Me and Nathada, I'm bad with these names. Me and Nathada was in the bathroom. Would you repeat the name, please? Nathada was in the bathroom, and she came in, and he came in, and was doing anal sex to her. And then she left, and he asked me if I was ready. I'm sorry. Hey, put some plugs on your ears. You should want to hear this. Okay, so if I was ready, and he had anal sex, and we had anal sex. At some point, you told the jury already that you moved to Sullivan County, upstate New York. I've heard it. And the Dada and Radia told you what was expected of you once you got there? Yes. Who traveled to upstate New York with you? It was me, Nicole. I think it was Najla and Safia. Does Najla go by another name? Answer, Chandra Lampkin. And what about Safia? I don't know her other name. Okay. How old were you girls? We were all 14. And when you arrived in upstate New York, were there other adult women that lived with Mr. York? Answer. There were other adult women there. I don't know if they necessarily lived with him, but there were other women there. Question. Did they live in his house? No. He had his own trailer. Question. Did Nathada go with you? No, Nathada had left at that time. Did Radia go with you? No. Did Rahil go with you? Rahil was already up there. Did your parents travel with you? No. How many people? My dad was living up there already. How often did you see your father? Not much. I didn't really see him much. Question. And when you arrived in upstate New York, do you recall how many followers were living there at that time? Maybe 20 or 25. It wasn't that much. Now this is in upstate New York, in the Monticello and the Catskill Mountains. So would this have been at the beginning before people started going to Sullivan County in bigger numbers? Yeah. Okay, so Eatonton. Question. Did Mr. York say... Okay, so this is another transcript, so I kind of moved on from that because I was trying to stay focused on her testimony. Did Mr. York say why he wanted you to bring his money and his videotapes instead of Kathy? No, he didn't give me a reason why I had to bring the money and the videotapes. No. Who was Kathy at that time to Mr. York? She was his wife. Did any of your children, did you have any children at that time that moved to you to Edenton? No, I was pregnant. So she got pregnant in upstate New York. Question, and you were pregnant with, let me try again. And you were pregnant with which of your children? My son. And again, that's Mr. York's son? Yes. How old were you when you got pregnant? Do you know? 17. And when was your child born? In August of 1993. Do you know how many months pregnant you were when you moved to Edenton? About 4 or 5 months. I think it was 4 months. Did Mr. York tell you about your? Did you tell Mr. York about your pregnancy? Yes, I did. How long after you learned you were pregnant did you tell Mr. York about it? See, now you got to go back to the. I cut it off at that point because I was making the point here. Okay, I don't know if you can see it because I'm looking at it on my screen, but if you can scroll down, you can see Habyibah Washington, you see Sakina, you see Nicole Lopez, you see Chandra Lampkin. These are all in the Vales at that time in upstate New York. You see, upstate New York, 1992. Habyibah is that little tiny girl right there, little short one. Yeah, and yeah.
So my last before you go on in this,
go ahead.
When they talk about this sister Habyibah Washington, it says that she recanted, and because she recanted, none of this is true. What do you say to that?
Okay, see now this one is where it gets really interesting, and I welcome that argument because she had already now this is something that they don't talk about, and they always try to make it look like it's something brand new, that one of the main victims, the one of the what do you call it, the key witnesses recanted her testimony, and that's something else I wanted to go out because everything is starting to come slowly starting to come back to mind. All right, now here's the deal. Let's get into it because I did an article called Did you get Habyibah Washington's last word on the so-called recantment video? Because I did 3 articles on this because I spoke with her and she gave me the whole breakdown. And when she was confronted on her Facebook page, she had started fighting back and talking about this stuff. So here's the layout. Nuwaupians had put together fake affidavits and started tampering with the witnesses. And because, again, they knew the mindset of these kids who didn't really know what life was like on the outside and how they were constantly threatened that once you leave the property, you're no longer protected and you'll be surrounded by jinns and all this other stuff. You know, they started saying different things that you can make it better. You can free your mother. In Tariq's case, they bribed him. It was Manny Aurora. I even talked to, matter of fact, I did a video where I interviewed the guy who was dead when they was trying to tamper with Tariq Noel and get him to change his testimony. And even tried to bribe him with baseball cards. But that's a whole video and article that we can go into at another time. So now let me say this real clear. The only recantment that ever made it to court, was involving Habyibah Washington because of the affidavit that she signed. All that other stuff you hear about Tariq and then signing the affidavit, none of that stuff was submitted in court. That was all designed as a propaganda tool to attack the victim's credibility. Because once they signed that, then the Nuwaupians went out and started spreading it. See, they recanted. They said it didn't happen. It was all a lie. They set up Pops. That was what that was all about. But they don't take into account of all those other people that they couldn't get a hold of that did not recant. Nikki Lopez did not recant. The people who testified against York, who participated in the sex acts with children, Ginger Chang, and a few other people, they didn't recant. The person who set this thing off, who sent that letter, Pauline Rogers, she never said that it didn't happen. She wrote it to the sheriff. She wrote it to the press about children are being molested on this property. Y'all need to get up in here.
And that letter was 1998, right?
I forget the year. I think it was 98. As a matter of fact, I have that, and now I'll pull that up, and I'm going to read that letter because I think it's necessary. And then I'm going to read where York already knew his time was up because these victims were already going out and talking, and I can show you the emails when they were saying, and it's very vulgar and it's very explicit, but I'm going to bring it up because I think it's necessary and relevant to what we're doing here. This is the kind of stuff that they did not bring up in those, Clubhouse attack mode that they were in. I don't know, somebody put some gas in their cartridges because after 20 years, they're finally getting back out there. But here we go. So in the article that I was making reference to, let me just read the first part about what Habyibah said. Now this is May 7th, 2018. These are my, now just because she was fed up because the Nuwaupians had already started trying to attack her on her Facebook page. These are my last and final words to you, Malachi Dwight York. So you can stop sending your goons my way. I curse you. I curse the day you were born. I curse the very womb that birthed you. I curse that shit cult you dared call a community. I curse you for hurting hurting your own kind. I curse you for all the children who grew up without mommy and daddy, without aunties and uncles, without grandmas and grandpas. For every night I spent without my mother, I curse you. For turning the heart of my father, I curse you. For keeping me away from my sister and my brother, I curse you. For all the little boys you raped, I curse you. For all the time those boys bled and cried, I curse you. For all the little girls you raped and defiled, I curse you. For all the times those girls cried and lived in fear, I curse you. For all the mothers and fathers who have known pain and suffered in the name of blind sacrifice, I curse you. For the son I lost, I curse you sevenfold. So the next time you dare send a message to me, here is all I have to say. While you meditate and chant your dark wishes, I pray that you live long enough to see your own face burn. Ashe. That was her last public statement.
For those who want to follow up, I changed the link. You look on the top, you'll be able to see it. Did you get Habyibah Washington's last word?
Yeah. So that was Idris on that one. So here's what most people are not even familiar with when it came down to that recant. Let's go through the timeline again. All right. So York was convicted in January of 2004. There was a video that was done with Habyibah and several others. It wasn't on that same day. It wasn't just her. It was a few other people who did that. And even two that they put out there, which was one of York's daughters, Leah Marbury, and Fatima something. I can't remember her last name. They have since said that video that they did was all contrived, and they were told that if we do this video, it will help Pops. So they did a video saying that, it was all a conspiracy. We went down to South Beach, and Jacob York was the one who set Pops up, and we went down there to negotiate and put it all together. It was all a conspiracy thing, and we put it together. That's what they were told would work to help Pops. So yeah, they have.
That's a major argument. This Jacob York is the one who set it all off.
Yeah, but that's all coming from the Nuwaupians, and because the Leah and Fatima, when they had the video and they were putting the video out, that is what aided in people and to try to change the public view in light of the other evidence that they had against York. So with this, they had, it was all a conspiracy. And of course, Habyibah went along with it because she said, well, I'm going to go to, let's do it this way. I'm going to go line for line. All right. So, I mean, that's, now I got to open up another article where, do you know about the hold on. Let me do it. Recant. So I have to go to my own website because I haven't dealt with this stuff for so long. Okay. The last word. Okay. So there was another one called, let's set the record. Oh, here's one. Okay. So here's another one. This is my interview with Habyibah. Let me, because I want to get to what was happening. So when she pled guilty, I'm sorry, let me start again. He pled guilty, got convicted in January 2004. He got convicted. Now, in April of 2004, she did the video. And the video was not supposed to go out to the public. But she said she did the video because she felt that 135 years was just too long. And you got to remember, she was one of those people who were constantly having sex with him, raised pretty much by him at this point, and she lived within that whole inner circle fold. Now, as a result of that video, York's attorneys sought to get York a new trial, because the thing was, one of the key witnesses has recanted and said that it didn't happen. Now, Habyibah gets pulled into court in August of 2004, and they start questioning her about the video. Now, before we go to her words, I want to get to what she said just before the last thing I was reading, where she was saying her last words. Now, this one was in August 23rd, 2016. And this is my interview with her. Okay, hope you watch it. Okay, I'm not going to do any video. I could care fucking less about clearing up anything for these fools' curiosity. Chuck, you can understand one thing about me. I can care less what people think about me, and I don't respond to people just because they throw my name around. I don't give any fucks about a bunch of uneducated, lazy-ass, donkey-minded people who basically are a bunch of rejects from the norm. I understand. That was my response here. Okay, so Habyibah says, I did the video because they kept harassing me to help end, because I felt bad for the man. When I saw him in court for the first time looking and like old as shit, I felt bad. I couldn't believe this was him. You have to understand the psyche of a child born into believing this man was God. When I saw him that way, I felt bad. I really felt bad. I felt that he could be forgiven. So, Habyibah, so no, Jacob York did not gather us together to go to Florida to talk about his dad. That's the stupidest tale running around. I stand by everything. I stand by every last thing I said at trial. And yes, I saw him engage in homosexual acts. The man had hundreds of homo porn videos, dudes fucking in the barn, etc. Ask Ginger. Michael, I'm floored. Forget about my reactions. Anyway, I want to thank you for being so open about it and giving me this information. I never wanted to talk about this with you. Blah 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 blah. So she says, it's the truth. I'm not exaggerating, and it's time. It's time it gets out, because this man will never stop. He continues to harass me by using my blind, no-brain father to get in touch with me. This is why I am putting an end to this. I will destroy the face of that man. I will put it all out there. Nothing will be forgotten or not written. he will have his corner. He will wait a minute. He will have in his he will have eye corners to. Well, it might be a typo. The man is pure evil. Yeah, well, you tell his followers to pass this message on to him. Habyibah said, okay, he's ready to tell the. She's ready to tell the truth. I said, thank you. I only need the message to get out about him. Okay. Thank you, Chuck. Okay, so yes. Okay, so Michael said, I asked her an unrelated question about the conversation that picks up. Yes, Chuck, he is a demon. And that's what a lot of people don't know. The man was into sexual alchemy, anal initiation, and the likes. The man studied Madame Blavatsky and Anton Levy. This shit goes far beyond molesting children, and that dumb cult is deep. Trust me, it goes way beyond just the stupid cult shit. If you really want to know who he is, get really deep into his family. Follow the David Piper York lineage. Do not believe he was Sudanese. He wasn't. He was the son of a half-breed named David Piper York. Get deep into his mother's history, and there you will find the true nature of that beast. I promise you. And that's that. Now, this if you go to the article, you'll see it because I have screenshots from a Facebook page where some of the other victims came out and were talking about it. Now, getting back to this guilty thing, getting back to this recantment. So let me pull that up because in August of 2004, there it is. In August of 2004, when Habyibah was brought into court, she was asked about the video. But first, let me read what she said here. And okay, we're gonna be leaving shortly. Okay, all right. Time to set the fucking record straight with these damn Nuwaupians and that recantment video. Malachi York, whatever the fuck, York has molested and abused multiple children. Out of guilt and sorrow for the man I have been raised to believe in, and after having been pursued and harassed for feeling sorry for him, I recanted my statement feeling sorry and pity. Courage is what it to accept that in the end, I was not the perpetrator. And in fact, I was a victim. The only wrong I have done is turning my back on the other victims to save the man that has preyed on all of us. I stand on the side of the truth and justice. Let him seek mercy through his creator. That man has hurt so many people, and yes, he is a pedophile that has preyed on children. That is the whole truth and shall remain true. Okay, we're going to be leaving this shortly. Okay, so let me get right down to it. All right. So, if you watch the video right here, so if you watch the video close, you will see what it says. And when she stated in court as to why she lied to the Nuwaupians in the video, this is what she said. On August 14, 2004, Miss Washington gave her reasons for making the video and signing the affidavit. York attorney Jonathan Marks says, before you made these affidavits, you went up to New York and made a videotape. Habyibah, yes. Marks, did anyone coerce you to make the videotape? No. Whose idea was it to make the video? My lawyer told me that that's what you wanted. Okay. My lawyer told me that that's what you wanted. Jonathan Marks. Okay. And that was after you told your lawyer in substance that you lied at the trial? Yes. And he suggested to you that you make a videotape documenting the fact that you lied? Yes. Attorney Marks. And you did that voluntarily? Yes. Was the videotape true or false? Habyibah. No. Jonathan Marks, did you tell Jacob that nothing was happening to the kids on the land? Yes. Was that true? No. So you're saying you lied to Jacob? Yes. Now tell us what your thought processes were, if you wouldn't mind. Why was it that you made these false affidavits? Habyibah Washington, I couldn't handle his sentence. I mean, I didn't think I could live with myself with him being in jail. I didn't think that testifying against him in trial would have a big effect on me like it did. I didn't think that it was fair for me to judge him. I think everybody deserves a second chance, even if they do something wrong. And I didn't know. I thought that, the only way that I can feel good is, to try to take it back. And I didn't think he deserved it. Habyibah stated that for the reason why she did the video. I think this is me saying that. Okay, so Habyibah says that York was guilty after her own videotape. Husna Evans says York is guilty after the video. The twins said that he was guilty after the video. Sakina Black says York is guilty after the video. Hanan Merritt says that York is guilty after the video. Issa Johnson says he's guilty after the video. So the Associated Press did an article on August 14, 2004, where it said key government witness in the case of the leader of the quasi-religious sect convicted of child molestation and racketeering said she tried to recant her testimony because she felt sorry for him. Attorneys for Malachi York, head of the United Nuwaupian Nation of Moors, had sought a new trial because one of the witnesses had made sworn statements in contradiction to trial testimony that said she had not been molested by York. But the witness, Habyibah Washington, said on the witness stand on Friday that her trial testimony against York was true. During the trial, she said York molested her beginning when she was 13, and York molested other children as well. She said she later recanted her testimony because she felt sorry for York and that, quote, everyone deserves a second chance, even when they do something wrong. York's defense attorney, Jonathan Marks, told Judge Ashley Royal that because Habyibah Washington stuck to her original testimony, he wanted to withdraw his motion for a new trial, but York instructed Marks to leave the motion in place. Royal did not rule on the motion on Friday. York is sentenced to blah, 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 blah. So, if you want to see it, I have the transcripts right there for everyone to see it and read it in full. It's right there. You can't miss it. It's in the article called You Are Aware That It's a Myth That Habyibah Washington Recanted, right? So when they talk about she recanted and all that other stuff, it did not go through the courts to where it was accepted because she stuck to her original testimony. So when the Nuwaupians are going out there saying she recanted, they're only talking about the video, but that's not what took place at the hearing. Now, let's look at it another way. If they want to say that, just because she said it, that alone should constitute as in a recantment. Well, let's go to something that is relevant to this story, because I don't know if people are aware of the fact, but one of the listed victims, whose name at that time was Issa Johnson, he did a poem. And this is a very well-known poem amongst people within the Nuwaupian organization, from a certain age period. Now, it's important for people to understand that initially, Issa Johnson testified on behalf of the defense of York, saying that nothing happened. So in a poem on December 8th, 2009 at 12:20 p.m. on a Tuesday, he wrote a poem called Unapologetic for Victimizing Me. And he lays out his poem and talks about what someone who we all know did in molesting him. And of course, he explains and admits it later on, because what's important about this and why I'm bringing it up is since they said that, since Habyibah didn't, even though she stuck to her original testimony at the trial and the case was dismissed, she said it. Well, if that's the case, the very same people that were testifying on behalf of York, who were in the Facebook group reading that poem, they all came out and admitted that York molested them. Even the ones who said it didn't happen. And they explained in that Facebook thing that they lied on the stand. And even they said that Adrian Patrick had told them to lie. And I posted it. It's on the website as well. And I got it right here. So I'm just going to go through different bits and pieces of it. Because, okay, so you got Nico Lopez. You got Donnie Addison. Let me see. Let me get around.
Article so I can put it up.
Yes. This is called, go to Ask the Nuwaupians. Have you ever read the poem Unapologetic for Victimizing Me by Issa Johnson?
All right. I'm pulling it up.
Right. Pull that up.
All right.
This is something else that they don't talk about. Because if you're going to say that Habyibah recanted, which she did not, matter of fact, all those affidavits, that was put together by a Nuwaupian who is now ostracized from the organization on grounds of molesting kids, Damon Pryor, who goes by the fake name Dusoa York. He's not related to York family, but, he's one of them crazy cult members who cut off his own family to try to pretend to be a York. So he, Cayuse, and the rest of these guys were going around trying to tamper with witnesses. And I was just talking to a Tariq yesterday. I said, man, y'all should have brought that up, that they were tampering with witnesses, trying to get them to change their statements so that they can use that against them, or just use it to destroy your credibility. So, you got it up?
Yeah, I got it up right now so the people can follow. So what he's reading is at the top.
All right. Oh, let me read something. This is coming from the pre-sentencing investigative report. And that was with the when the judge was going to give his decision on the time that York was going to send. They had to go through like his history, the severity of the crimes, pre-sentencing investigation report before you can render that. So he was saying that Issa Johnson, this is line 43. At that time, he was age 14 at the trial. Issa was taken into custody by DFACS officials when the compound was raided in May 2002. Several days later, he was examined by a physician and as a result showed physical signs of abuse, as well as testing positive. I blocked that out because you will not, that's not even necessary. But this is not me putting this out. This is something that's, you can go and get this yourself, because some people were objecting to the fact that I had this, but this is not on my website. I'm talking about the whole pre-sentencing investigative report. This is, your public can go down and get this. But anyway, it says that due to his homeschooling, he was behind in his education and having difficulty in integrating into the public school system. Issa possesses at that time a 3rd to 4th grade math, reading, language abilities, and kindergarten level writing skills. Of course, he has subsequently bettered himself. They even did a video where he had to get his whole identity. He didn't even have a social security number. This is Kathy Johnson, York's main girl's son, who grew up on the property and didn't even have a social security number. You know who he was. But anyway, let's get down to the point. So the point, if you read the initial part of it, Issa M. Johnson, unapologetic for victimizing me. Just the mention of your name is like a dagger through my chest. Thought I forgave you, but I'm living in distress. Still, I cry from nightmares. So accurately, I'm a mess. I feel you're out to haunt me, so I'm unable to rest. You've stole my innocence without proper cause, destroyed my essence. Now in this world I'm lost. I cry with laughter till the pain is numb. You've scared me for pleasure. Now look what I've become. I scorn you in this poem, for you express amusement in what should be your embarrassment. It's your time it's time I air out my secrets. That time that's been concealed within my basement. I'm sorry about that. I'm relearning to live for my youth you held captive. I was only your seed that you planted to eat. Your piglet you cared after only to feast, raised me to use me, with abuse that confused me. I'm mentally unstable with your leftover on my table. Given that you find no wrong in what you've done, undo my abashment, and tell the truth to your children. They are deserving to know my lack of care for you is not only in vain. Many say this is just a cry for attention. But let's be frank. What is there to gain? I beg not for anyone's sympathy, for there is nothing man could do. To rewrite my history, just acknowledge the fact that this poem is non-fiction. But stone me, yes, indeed, for I prevaricated at your conviction. Prevaricated, means lie at your conviction. And those that justify with your despicable crime, hopefully they burn in hell beside you for a lifetime. Teach me to forgive something I can't forgive. Teach me to forgive the scar that still bleeds, or the past I persist to regret. Yet teach him to own up to the crimes he commits. Yes, this pertains to whomever the shoe fits, considered by life and the hurt I've tolerated. Issa M. Johnson. Now, when you look at the article, what I did was here's the Facebook screenshot is a copy and paste where you have the people who you have Trina Wilson, great poem, Issa. You need to seriously publish your writing. Tamara Washington, I'm crying over here. Lem Taylor, wow, Issa, please continue to heal, little brother. Let the pain out so you can heal. With every tear, you will grow stronger. And as it go down, you got Habyibah. Wow, Issa, that is very intense, but great. I hope your writing helps you to heal. Sarah Franklin, oh my God, Issa, seriously, I'm like in my school library trying to keep it together. This is so touching on so many levels. I totally can relate to you in some of the things. It's awesome and on and on. Jacob York, God the Lampkin, Mayflower. Now, I'm going to get down to some of the people who testified on behalf of York who were reading it and what they said. Now, I think this is pretty. Okay, let me go ahead. So, in one case, Hassana Evans, one of the victims, wow, reading this was amazing. Every time at their mama, everyone and their mama told me about this. I'm glad that I did take the time to read it. Being taken advantage of by anyone is never a good thing. I do get frustrated when people say it made you stronger. You met a lot of great people. A lot of great people had great experience. No, fuck that. My life would have been great still without those horrible experiences. I would have avoided nightmares, flashbacks, bad relationships, losing my childhood, and don't get me started with my education and everything else. God had nothing to do with this. So stop with he put you in that situation for a reason. I was in a cult in the story. What bothers me even more are the sick people who still follow, believe in, and communicate with this filthy monster, especially the ones who are fake about their beliefs. One minute he's guilty, next he's innocent. No cold words for me. Excusing rape from Dwight York should never be tolerated. That man got what he deserves. Issa, I love you even more for publishing this. Let's go. This is Hanan Merritt. She also was testified on behalf of York. And there you have it. I couldn't agree with you anymore. I believe all these people that still follow him, Dwight York, are as guilty as he is. How can you run around saying he's innocent, knowing he molested a bunch of us, and then sit there and have us taking the stand in his defense, and he couldn't even defend himself, showing how much of a coward he is. And yes, sick is the word that defines him. He molested children, boys, and girls, some as young as 4 years old, and it's a bunch of idiots saying he needs to be a free man. Nah, fuck no. Not as long as I'm walking this earth. He deserves the 134 years, and I dare say some to say I sound hateful or unforgiving. Shit, yeah, I'm unforgiving because first of all, he's still saying he's innocent and not owning up to his actions, and he really thinks that what he did wasn't wrong. So I'm very much so unforgiving. Me and all the other victims go through issues because of this. It's just a sad story. Let me try it again. Okay, it's just a sad story to have your innocence taken away from you when you're so young, and having sex is the last thing you have on your mind. So, like I said, he is where he belongs, and that's where he will take his last breath. I'm not going to read any more of it. Anybody can go to the article, and you can read it all for yourself, all the gory and what they're saying. And, let me say this last part because she posted again. She said, I mean, are you serious? Blaming young, innocent children for being molested? Are you fucking kidding me? I think not. Aren't you a mother? So you mean to tell me if someone molested your child and you didn't say no, that makes the situation right? I don't think so, because people forget the key word, children. And when there's a rape or molestation taking place, you're terrified, in a state of shock, in all kinds of levels. And Dwight York, had everything set up to where things were in his favor by having the children separated from the parents. The only person at fault for this whole situation is Dwight York. He took away my innocence, my virginity, my ability to wait till I'm married to have sex. He took away, and she's yelling at this, he took away my self-esteem all the time. He's the only one to blame. So if you or anyone else disagree, I suggest you keep that shit to yourselves, because I really don't want to I really don't want to get straight ignorant on anyone. So that's my suggestion, because this is very touchy situation. I'm going to stop right there because I got to make a move. I think that if you read this, you'll get the point. So my point is, so if they're going to say that Habyibah recanted, then all of the people, all of the children who were teenagers or near adults or adults at this time had already spoken out publicly and said that they lied on the stand in defense of York. So all that stuff about recantment is garbage in 2022, because the person who only went far enough by having an affidavit signed, and it was brought before a court, and then she was brought in for a hearing to determine if the perpetrator was able to get a second trial, was ironed out, and she stuck to her testimony. And subsequent to that, when she left America, she was still saying the same thing, that he was guilty. So they can't come back. All they're doing now is living in a little pipe dream and living off of a videotape that was done by different people, and it was done by members of the organization, try to get them to change their testimony to discredit their credibility. Raborn, we got to do this again, but I got to make a move because it's getting late and I got to get to the store.
I just got one more question, and the next one we're going to the teaching. What made you put all of this time into this website? Why did you make this? Why did you do this?
Okay, for years there was talk about 360 questions to ask the Nuwaupians. People have been talking about it. There was a Christian group that put out a book called 360 Questions to Ask a Nuwaupian, but it was more centered around their their challenging of Nuwaupian doctrine when it pertained to the 360 questions to ask the Christians. So in 2011, when I had started, after I left my hiatus and started picking up the books again and reading them, I started questioning some of the guys that I knew as Nuwaupian teachers. You know, Haru, Kansu, Jonathan Johnson, people that I knew. These are, listen, I say my peers because we were all teachers. And I'm asking them questions and they can't answer them and they can't give me any primaries on this or that. And then I started looking at the doctrine as being fallacious because my girl at the time was who was in the organization as well was saying, like, damn, just they can't even answer basic questions, and so they must be covering up him. So what led me to do this wasn't until around 2013, 14, when it was a lot of big talk on Facebook, and people were attacking me and other people because they said that I was disgruntled. I'm not getting the shine anymore. So now I'm going against the master teacher and calling me a slanderer and all this other stuff. So I was talking to the brother Wajaru, who was York's I guess minister of information at the time. He was at every trial, everything. He had everything on York as far as documentation. So he, of course, at the time didn't have time because he was, going into this whole method thing and doing the teaching stuff. So I was focused on this because I like debating. So I was up there arguing with these people day and night because, doing the radio show, that was my thing, arguing all night, trying to get the point across and getting people to judge based on the evidence. So, we talked and he said, well, why don't you set up the 360 questions to ask the Nuwaupians? I'm like, damn, that sounds good. And so we, talked about it. So I figured that why don't we do a website? Because with a website, we can change it in real time. Something comes up, we can hit it right on the spot, as opposed to having a book and then we got to rewrite the book or do a part this or part that. So that culminated into the Nuwaupianism.com because we tried to come up with different names, and Nuwaupianism.com was what we decided on. And the way that it was structured, we wanted to set it up the way that York put out the 360 questions to ask the Orthodox Sunni Muslim, the Hebrew Israelites, Israeli Church, Christian. The way that he set it up, that was the format of how I wanted it to go. So in the opening, I used bits and pieces from York's opening of the 360 questions to ask any one of, that we just mentioned, and I just changed the words around because I wanted it to be just like he did it. Like when he would start off, when he did the 360 question to ask the Muslim, he said, I know the dangers of writing a book like this. That's what York said. So I said, I know the dangers of having a website like this. So I wanted to do it like that because to me, I saw it as kind of like a smack in their face, like an insult and almost making mockery of him. So I did it that way to kind of give that extra, kiss my ass kind of effect.
No doubt.
So at this point, I am persona non grata, and I love it.
Yeah, they don't like you, bro.
Hey, Rob.
Before you go, dog, hold on. Garfield, you still there? Garfield probably.
Is Garfield over there? Because we've been doing the show today.
Yeah, he on here right now, man. You messed up that Sumerian show, man. I want to hear.
Oh no, that's all good. We gonna do it. We gonna get it.
I'm here.
Hey, Garfield.
What's up, family? What's up,
brother?
What's going on with the Sumerian show? What's happening?
He could do it anytime, man.
I mean, I got
my Zoom set up, but I think we was going back and forth, and he wasn't.
It's been an on and off thing. I'm sorry, because being over here and the time difference, and running a business, and I don't have the time that's why I can't do this stuff with York, because I just don't have the time like I used to. And besides, he's irrelevant. But like I said, as a result of like that Clubhouse thing, is relevant now to them because I think that they're putting out misinformation from the from the early 2000s that people are not even abreast of the fact that that stuff got smashed down long ago. But we will definitely do the show on that later on. Maybe tomorrow we can do a Garfield, or next week when I'm off.
Bro, I'm gonna set up the Zoom and just make you the moderator and let's say
okay.
The host and then
like we did that other show. Okay. All right, that'd be good. That'd be good. Because it's not long. Because I just wanted to focus on the whole Kish thing and Sangha.
Yeah, you want to touch on the black-headed one stuff, right?
Yeah. Because I think that that I'm seeing people in different, that people are taking that stuff and they don't know what they're talking about. They don't even know the time period on that, and they're thinking that's something ancient, as it is not. And most of it is not even in Sumerian text. But that's a whole separate argument. So we'll deal with that. We'll deal with that.
Yeah, man.
All right,
Go
cool.
ahead, Thug, if you got one more question because he's gonna get out of here.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the brother. Even though I just got here, I probably missed most of it, but I'm definitely somebody. I grew up in Brooklyn, man, during the time when, he was Imam Issa,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying,
Mm-hmm.
and I just recollect that, I used to look at the people who used to sell incense. That used to be them. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? They used to
Yeah.
think that they were the Muslims, but it was him.
Yeah.
It was a whole bunch of confusion for me growing up in Brooklyn at the time. So, as I grew older and I started to understand who this dude was, and I've read all those scrolls, 360 questions, ask Muslim, 360 questions, ask Christians, because that was like battle material for me when I was growing up. You know what I'm saying? I used to go into the churches and ask those questions to these dudes. I used to go into the mosque and ask these too. But the thing that I want to ask, there was a woman on here maybe a couple of days ago, saying that she was his daughter. I believe she was his daughter. I think her name is Nunu or something. I forget her name. And she was in here saying all of this BS about how he was innocent and yada, yada, yada. But to the point that you was making about somebody saying that they recanted. In the federal system, I've been to the feds. In the federal system, any single thing that happens in a court, if somebody recanted, that shit is documented and you can pull that shit up for free. All of
Mm-hmm.
these people that are coming forward talking about all the witnesses recanted, fucking lying, right?
Right.
They're
Right.
they're lying because you should have the document of the recantation and the hearing transcripts.
And I have that, and that's what I
Thank you,
posted. That's what I
thank
posted,
you.
and that's the only one. That is the only one. And when you read it, you'll see that she stuck to her original testimony, and York's attorney, which he pulled back, and York was insistent that he keeps it in place, but ultimately it was dropped.
See, and and,
So
and and that's what I swear, man, I was on a stage with a bunch of people that was defending this woman,
yeah,
and they was all like, "Why are you going after? Why? What is this gonna do, brother? What are you trying to?" I said, "The fuck you mean I'm trying to do?" I said, "These motherfuckers are enemies to our people, and they should be thoroughly exposed and washed the fuck up. They should
yeah.
never be allowed to have space, conversation, or nothing."
Yeah, that's the sad reality. And people got to understand that York's hustle began when he got out of prison back in 1968 when he was paroled. He was actually 67. He was out, but he didn't get off parole until 68. And Islam became the hustle. And he was able to keep that going until it got exposed. And Bilal Phillips put that book out. Because when we read the Ansar cult book, we sat inside the building. Brothers were saying, well, that's true. We do that. We knew that, but in the public, we couldn't do that because Ansar's not going to go out and say, yeah, but he was right about this, and that. That's not what we was doing. So we just had to follow the talking points. Whatever York said to say, this is what we had to go out there and say. And we sidetracked the conversation. And he started pushing out the love man is back, Dr. York. The return of the love man and the music stuff. All this stuff to try to get away from all of that.
One quick thing: Did you touch on the green room?
Yeah.
See, I
Yep.
missed that.
Well, I don't think he's going to take this down. I hope he don't take this down because
Nah, this is staying up, brother.
Okay, cool.
Replays is on.
I bet.
This ain't going down. This is staying up.
Hey, because hey brother, I brought up the green room in the room, and they was like, no, that's not what the green room is. The green room is now. This is what I read in the scroll, and I swear to God, I'm looking for that scroll right now. I can't remember which number it was, but it was explaining the green room, and the green room was explaining how, in order for you to get married, he had to have sex with your wife before you got married to her.
I don't know about that. But what we do know about the green room is that you had access to it. I mean, come on, the green is supposed to be positivity, and that was you had a chance to get one night off and have connubial visits with your girlfriend or wife, whoever's your mate. And in Baltimore, we had it on the 3rd floor. In DC, we had it on Florida Avenue. We didn't have one in Florida, so that was a whole nother story. But that was what whoever put in the most money was able to get the green room. That was it. That's how it was set up. If so if you have a guy who had put in $151 in, the guy that put in 150, he just go back to work the next morning. That's how it was back then. That was the Ansar life.
Okay,
And the last
this is the last thing that I got. It
go
was
ahead, dog. Go ahead.
interesting. It was interesting for me that I was wondering, how was he able to acquire so much property back then? Like the whole Bushwick
That's
Avenue was,
another
you
story,
could
man.
literally
That's
say the whole.
part two. Pull up for part
Yeah, you have to do a
two.
part 2 on
He
that.
was able to do all that, yo.
Yeah, that's another story, And remember, and at that time, it was the Gambinos who ran that, who controlled that narcotics trafficking area in Bushwick. That's a whole nother story we got to get into.
All right, thank you, brother.
Yeah.
Last one, Chuck. So
Mm-hmm.
if you didn't make your quota, did Dr. York sanction beatdowns? Because we were told that wasn't him and people was doing it on their own. What's the science with that?
Okay, this is how it was in the community. It wasn't that let's put it this way. If you were seen as holding out, and if you had the money and you were holding out and you were caught, then you were subject to discipline. I remember, I do remember an incident in Brooklyn, even when we were just visiting, that my brother got beat down for some stuff like that. Because the Mujahid, as it was called, Mujahid, which was some big muscle-bound dudes in the community that was York's military. And they gave people the therapeutic back rubs if they got out of line. I remember the brother Mufid. He's a big dude. He was in D.C. He used to drive a motorcycle. He had his jaw broken in Brooklyn when he went up there because I don't know what he did. I heard he said something, or he looked at one of York's wives, and the Mujahid took him in the masjid and beat him down. When it came to quotas, it depended. I remember in Baltimore, if there was a brother who was kind of suffering from like these mental issues as a result of taking experimental drugs, and he was under medication, and he was getting a check from the government because of some court case that he won. And one night, I remember he didn't turn all his money in. In fact, I think he turned in about $5, but he was eating some French fries and fish that he got from the Korean joint on the corner. So the brother who was from Brooklyn, at that time, his name was Matim. He's passed now. A Puerto Rican fella. He had taken over Baltimore, and he was so outraged that I guess he didn't like the brother, but he had called a quote family meeting at 3:00 in the morning, where they were trying to decide his fate because they took him in and they searched his jalabia, and they found that he had like $200 in his pocket, and that was, of course, coming from the government. And because he didn't turn that money in, they was going around voting, because I know Abdullah was one of York's son, because we brought Abdullah, Faisal, and one of his daughters down from upstate New York to go to school down in Baltimore. And, we were going around questioning people, what should we do? And they're talking about what Pops was saying, we take the money, beat his ass, and then kick him out. Because Matil was saying that's how the Ansars do it. We whip his ass, take the money, and then we kick him out. And so that's, from what I saw, based on how this thing was going around, ultimately they put him out. They kept the money, just put him out on the street in the middle of the night, and he had nowhere to go. And my girl was so outraged by it, she said, "I'm leaving. I'm not being a part of no group like this," you know. But yeah, I can't say definitively if he said to go and beat people up if they don't turn in their money, but we do have instances where brothers who were from Brooklyn who said, "This is how Pops wanted it done. This is how we used to do it in Brooklyn." Because when I was in Florida, oh man, I haven't even talked about this story. When I was in Florida, there was a brother named Kedar who was from Philly, and he was opening up a new community in Opelika, Florida, right down the street from Yahweh Ben Yahweh in 1992. All right, so you know, it was kind of rough trying to make money in Florida. You know, it was just me and two other brothers. And we had to go on walk routes with our incense and oils. You know, we're doing our thing. We didn't really have any books, you know, and we were still wearing the white. So here's the problem. It was complex because you had Yahweh Ben Yahweh right down the street. And at that time, Yahwehs, they was terrorizing people in Florida, you know, cutting people's ears off, killing motherfuckers and all this stuff, right? And so whenever people saw us, we were just like, it was totally about 5 of us there. So when they saw us, they ran or didn't want to have anything to do with us because they thought we were Yahweh Ben Yahweh. So when they see us, we say, "Hey, brother, would you like to get some incense or oil?" And they'll say, "You go Yahweh and I'll go my way." And so making money was hard, you know, down in Florida. So, you know, one day I called my mom's up, you know, I was talking, you know, she's like, "You all right down there? You need anything?" I said, "You can send me like some money, you know, I can get something, you know, because it's kind of rough, you know." See, I told her, "I'll send you some money in Western Union." So she sent me $100. So I went down there, got the joint cash, and I had it in the pocket, and I wasn't trying to turn it on. I ain't giving the motherfucker my whole $100 that my mother gave to me, you know. So me, the dude named Deerdum, whatever, that's how you pronounce his name, Deerdum, and there was another brother. So as we was on the walk route, we was walking home, you know, we saw the liquor store, so we went up in there. I said, "Look, I'm gonna go ahead and buy these brothers some Banton potato chips, and everybody a soda, one of them orange sodas, orange crush, or something like that." And so we walked back to the bait. Okay, so when I get back there, Kedar's wife, she said, "Tom Jazz, you know, the food is ready and shit, right?" And, you know, they were still munching on potato chips. And so she told Kedar that they eating potato chips. And, you know, I turned in my money. I turned in like $20 or something like that. And then they turned in whatever they had. And then, you know, we had a family meeting. And so he told the brothers that I was stealing from the babies, even though it was only his kid there. And said that how we do it in Brooklyn is we got to strip you butt naked and search you for the money. Now, they didn't do that because, you know, as Ansars, the whole thing was that Sons of Canaan bullshit saying that, you know, Canaan saw the nakedness of his father and all this other stuff. He said, you can't see the brother naked because you'll start a new race. And so the brother's like, "I don't want to do this, but, you know, we got to do it. You know, we got to do it." So I just took the money. I took the $80 and I just folded it up and stuffed it in my mouth. And, you know, by the time they were searching me and did, you know, stripped me down to my boxes, went through my pockets, pants, and shoes, socks, and everything, I had the money still in my mouth. I had the money in my mouth. So, you know, shortly after that, I rolled out because I talked to the brother in Baltimore, and he said, "Yeah, you do carpentry work?" "Yeah, man." You know, he said, "Come on in, we can build our masjid up here." So I left Florida and then moved up to Baltimore, but that's, you know, blah. So where was I going with that? So yeah, that was life, you know, dealing with you know, the money issue, because it was all about the money, man. The better hustle you had to make the most money, the better off you were. And you got props for it because then you become part of an elite class within the community. Because if you didn't turn in money, if you didn't turn in over $100, you were considered a bum. And in a lot of cases, you didn't have a girl on the inside. You had probably smashed somebody off on the outside. That's how it was. And when I first moved in, the brother told me, he said, "Let me tell you what, when you come up in here, don't think these niggas got halos around their head. When you come up in here, we straight soldiers. And you might see some shit that's going to shock your mind, so I'm just giving you a heads up." I'm like, "Oh, all right, sorry, I'm good. I can take anything." And surely enough, I see brothers fighting the first night I moved in.
Yeah,
and
man.
it was rough,
I
man. It
love
was rough.
talk about them checks,
Huh?
the check scamming.
Oh yeah, the welfare, yeah, because my girl, she moved from Oxon Hill, Maryland, and she came to class. I saw her on the monitor, talked to her. She was older than me, so went up inside. She moved in, and I told her, well, one of the requirements when you move in, you gotta get on public assistance. She said, what? I gotta get on welfare? Well, it's for the nation, all for and by each other. So anything we got to do, Caesar owes us. Oh, so that was one of the justifications. Now in Baltimore, it got kind of out of hand to the point when they see all these girls coming down there to get them checks, and them food stamps. They refer to them as the holy whores.
The holy what?
The holy whores.
Wow.
Because you don't put down that you living with a man or you got a man in your life. You're on welfare. So you living in this commune and you got brothers living on one side of the building and the sisters living on the other side, and they going over there getting public assistance, and they bring that money back, and that money going back to Dr. York and pay a few bills. And in Baltimore, that was when we had the shotgun bandits, when the brothers was going out in Ricestown Road, sticking up and shooting Jewish people and robbing them. It made the news, the shotgun bandits, but nobody knew it was us at the time. The brothers right in the masjid, the Minzarab, because by that time we started moving away from Islam and started becoming more Hebrews. So we were called the Nubian Hebrews as opposed to the Nubian Islamic Hebrews. So, you had the sawed-off shotguns, you had the Glock 9s, you had them all up above inside the mosque, the house of prayer. And so after they make prayer, the brothers will take off the white or take off the kameez and start putting on their black fatigues and their tactical outfits. And then they go out in the middle of the night and go into Ricestown and start sticking up Jews or anybody that they saw walking that was white. And they would bring the money back, I remember brother brought back, I woke me up and said, look what we got. And he just pulled out a bag full of gold rings, earrings, chains. It was a bag full of gold and some dollars, And, I mentioned it to my girl that, the brothers are doing that. And, she's like, damn, them niggas gonna get all us pinched. So there was a sister working in Brooklyn. She used to be in Brooklyn. She was one of York's wives at one time, and she was running a Baltimore store. Her husband's name was Kafid. I remember her name. For real. So she had York's direct number. So she called upstate and said the brothers are robbing people at night. And all York said was tell the brothers to stop, even though the money was still going up, because they gave York a percentage of their robbery earnings. They bought this giant whole Nautilus, workout room, because we had 3 floors in Baltimore. So up on the 3rd floor, which was the mate room, the green room, they put workout machines up in there. It turned it into a gym. Until they eventually, I think 2 of them were killed in a shootout with police. A couple of them are still in prison because they, eventually York had them dispersed. 2 of them came to D.C. and they still was doing their thing, and then he eventually put them out. But he did reap the rewards of their ill-gotten gains. That's how it was. And I still got the news article and clippings from it as well. And the brother C-Tep, he was there. He was right there because he used to carry a gun all the time. So he can attest to that straight up. So, I saw the guns. I knew what they was doing, It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy, it was just madness. So, there were some good times and there were some really scary moments, being in a part of the cult, be it in DC, Florida, Philadelphia, and any other places. I remember we had a shootout down in Florida. Local drug boys saw us. They thought we was Yahweh Ben Yahweh and started shooting up the damn house we was in. We couldn't do God all night anymore. We had to stay in the back because people was riding by shooting, thinking we was Yahweh Ben Yahweh. Because, they had, the Yahweh Ben Yahweh had uprooted some apartment complex. And then, people got killed over that stuff. And they see anybody dressed in all white walking down the street, they thought you was them. So, let me stop it right there because I can go on and on for all night.
Yeah, this thing going, we go do part 2. We get
all right, bet.
This was necessary because they was on here talking about how righteous all of the people are.
Fuck out of here.
It was peace and loving.
Hell no.
He could never do these things. They saying that.
Yeah, I know. He was the angel Michael, Melchizedek. Yeah. he was the angel of the book of Revelation sent to earth to redeem the 144,000 children of light, to prepare them for the return of the crystal city, because they will be our salvation. That when the 144,000 are raised, they will go up, and it will be like a day until the Lord, 1,000 years, and they'll come back, and by that time we should be safe from the nuclear exchange that would take place between Russia and America.
Man, damn. So for those who just came in the room, this is our brother Chuck Morgan. We went over some of his history as far as being a part of the organizations from '89. For those who were in those other rooms last week, you see that they had him blocked out the room, and he doesn't even be on Clubhouse like that because they scared to let him talk. But he's here now to speak. Website right here. All of those
Nuwaupianism.com.
primaries are there. Transcripts are there. Everything is there. Everything they were saying is actually what they're saying, what you heard, and then directly, well, here's the court documents and this. Here's the recantments that you're talking about, but you left this part. So it's always a thing when you leave some things out. But I feel that it was important to have him on here because this is a different group of people who probably didn't hear this before, and if you just listen to them, you would think that, oh yeah, it does sound like a setup.
Yeah, you got to know, you have to have context, you got to know the timeline, and you got to know the propaganda that was put out by the organization on behalf of York, because York put a lot of that stuff out. It was York who was going around saying that. It was Jacob York who set him up.
Right.
First he was saying that he was angry because York had abandoned his sick mother. Then they said that that Jacob wanted some money to establish a recording, get a record thing going, and because his father turned him down, that's what caused him to go and try to set up his father. So it was a whole bunch of little things that was said that people on the outside didn't know. A lot of we knew from being as Ansars, Nubian Hebrews, Holy Tabernacle Ministries, Nuwaupian Nation of Moors, and on and all the different little subsects of cults that he developed within one major cult. If you were a part of that, you would know a lot of the stuff that took place as it was happening. People on the outside, all they saw was a beautiful, beautiful gift box with nothing in it but worms and maggots.
Right. And then I wanted to get to that would have ended it off with him trying to find a new defense to get out of this, to say, you have no jurisdiction over me. I'm a Washington, Chickasaw, Cherokee, Moor.
So man, listen, let me tell you that we're gonna do this again because that whole episode of he being a Native American, I personally, me and the brother Jafar went to the National Archives to retrieve his family records to prove that he was related to the girl from the book The Black Indians. Her name on the sister on the cover, not the cover, but the second page, Fletcher. What's her name? Diana Fletcher. He's supposed to be related to Diana Fletcher. and that he was related to Ben York and all this garbage. And we went back there, and I was the one who had to tell him, no, we didn't find any evidence whatsoever of you being related to or having any native ancestry at all. I mean, of course, I didn't say it like that, but I had to tell him that we weren't able to find anything, none of the names you gave us at all, nothing.
What did he say when you said that?
Well, it was in a text message because at that time we was communicating through his email Egypt3x3 at AOL.com. I mean, AOL, that was his thing, because he would go on America. What's it called?
AOL.
America. Yeah, AOL, America Online. Yeah, he would every Sunday he would go and do classes. Not even classes. He would go in and harass people and religious people or 5%ers or Nature Islam, anybody, go into their rooms and start and then take those transcripts from those chats and turn them into books. Dr. Malachi York debates the Christians. Dr. York debates the Nation of Islam, debates this and this, and all it was just different pieces of the chats where he's attacking or debating people. And I even put it on my YouTube channel where he said, we sometimes I feel like I'm going to go in and just harass Sunni Muslims. Let me go, man. Like I said, this thing can go on and on and on and on and on.
Thank you for coming through, bro.
My pleasure. Hey, hit me up, brother. We're going to set it up again, all right?
All right.
Thanks,
all
sir.
right. Peace, my brother.
Peace.